I got a job as a waitress at one of the most famous restaurants in the city. But what happened there after closing time changed how I see the world forever. Before the story begins, don't forget to subscribe and write in the comments what your profession is and whether you've ever experienced something strange or unexpected at work. During the day, the restaurant looked perfect. It was always full of people. Families celebrated birthdays there, businessmen held meetings over expensive meals, couples came for romantic dinners. The place had amazing reviews and was known as one of the classiest spots in town. When I first got hired, I felt lucky. The building was beautiful, with warm lights, soft music, and polite managers who smiled all the time. The staff seemed friendly, and everything felt normal. My job was simple: take orders, bring food, refill drinks, and keep customers happy. Nothing seemed suspicious. The pay was average for a waitress, but the tips were good because the guests were generous. I worked long hours, but I didn't mind. I was proud to say I worked there. For the first few weeks, I only worked daytime and evening shifts. Every night around 11, the restaurant would slowly empty. The last guests would leave, chairs would be put on tables, and the cleaning crew would come in. But I started noticing something strange. Not everyone went home. While most of us clocked out and grabbed our coats, a small group of employees stayed behind. The managers didn't say much about it. They just nodded at them quietly. Once I asked another waitress, "Why do some people stay after closing?" She shrugged and said, "Night shift." I laughed. "Night shift for what? The restaurant's closed." She didn't answer, just gave me a look and walked away. That was the first time I felt curious. Over the next few weeks, I noticed more details. The lights in the main dining room would turn off, but faint light came from downstairs, from the basement. I had never been in the basement. There was a heavy door near the kitchen that always stayed locked. Only managers and a few workers had keys. Sometimes I could hear muffled music coming from behind it, low, deep sounds that definitely weren't part of the restaurant playlist. One evening, as I was leaving, I saw 2 security guards arrive. They weren't there during regular hours. They stood by the basement door and nodded at the manager. That's when I realized something serious was happening after closing. I started asking around quietly. Most people avoided the topic, but one older waitress finally whispered to me, "You don't get to work nights unless they trust you." "Trust you with what?" I asked. She sighed. "It's not just serving food." That only made me more curious. Over time, I worked harder than ever. I never showed up late. I never complained. I followed every rule. I noticed the managers watching me closely. Sometimes they'd whisper to each other while looking in my direction. A few months later, one evening after my shift, the head manager called me into his office. He closed the door and said, "You've been doing a great job. We think you're ready for something more." My heart started beating fast. He leaned forward and said quietly, "How would you like to work the night shift?" At first, I didn't know what to say. I had so many questions. "What exactly is the night shift?" I asked. He smiled slightly. "It pays very well." That got my attention. "How much better?" I asked. He told me the number. It was almost 4 times what I usually made in one shift. I was shocked. "But," I hesitated, "what would I be doing?" "Serving guests," he said simply, "just like always." Then he added, "But everything you see during night shift stays there. No talking about it outside, not to friends, not to family." That made me nervous. "Is it dangerous?" I asked. He paused for a second. "Nothing to worry about if you follow the rules." I went home that night with my mind racing. Part of me felt uneasy, but the money could change everything. I had bills to pay. I wanted to save for school. I wanted a better life. After 2 days of thinking, I agreed. My first night shift was scheduled for Friday. When Friday came, I was told not to wear my regular uniform. Instead, they gave me a small bag. "Change downstairs," the manager said. My stomach tightened. 2 security guards stood near the basement door as usual. The manager unlocked it. I had never gone down there before. The stairs were narrow and dimly lit. As we walked down, the sounds grew louder. Music, laughter, the clinking of glasses. It didn't sound like a restaurant. When we reached the bottom, the door opened slowly, and I froze. The basement looked like a completely different world. Bright lights flashed from large tables covered in cards and chips. People were crowded around them, cheering and shouting. There was a long bar with expensive bottles lined up. Men in suits, women in elegant dresses. Some faces I recognized immediately. There was a local judge, a businessman whose commercials were always on TV, even a police officer I'd seen directing traffic downtown. They were all there, laughing, drinking, playing games. It looked like a secret casino. My mouth went dry. "This," I whispered, "this is under the restaurant?" The manager nodded calmly. "This is where the real money is made." I was led into a small room where several other waitresses stood. They were wearing outfits I had never seen before. Short skirts, dark tops with leather details. It didn't look like restaurant clothing at all. One of the women handed me a similar outfit. "Put this on," she said. I stared at it. "This is the uniform?" I asked. She gave a small smile. "Welcome to night shift." I changed slowly, my hands shaking. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I felt uncomfortable, but everyone else acted like it was normal. Then a supervisor came in. "Listen carefully," she said. "You will bring drinks. You will take requests. You will be polite no matter what. If there's trouble, security handles it. You do not argue. You do not ask questions." I nodded silently. My heart was pounding. She opened the door and gestured toward the casino floor. Time to work. The moment I stepped out, the noise hit me. Music played loudly from speakers hidden in the walls. People shouted in excitement as chips piled up on tables. Money changed hands constantly. I was assigned to serve drinks near one of the gaming tables. Almost immediately, someone snapped their fingers at me. "Whiskey," a man in a suit said without even looking up. I brought it quickly. He slipped a large bill into my hand. "Keep it," he said. My eyes widened. That tip alone was more than I made in a normal hour upstairs. As the night went on, I started to understand why they paid so much. The guests ordered the most expensive drinks. They tipped generously. Some tipped just for a smile. But the atmosphere felt tense. Even though people were laughing, there was something heavy in the air, like everyone knew they were part of a secret. I saw people arguing over games. Once, two men started shouting at each other. Before I could even react, security appeared and separated them quickly. They were calm but firm. The men quieted down immediately. It was clear who was in control. In one corner, there were private rooms with curtains. Only certain guests were allowed in there. I wasn't told what happened inside, just that drinks needed to be delivered quietly. Sometimes I recognized more famous faces, a city council member, a wealthy real estate owner, even someone from the local news. It shocked me how people who looked so respectable during the day were here at night, mixing with people who clearly lived dangerous lives. Criminals and law enforcement drinking together like old friends. One older waitress whispered to me, "That's how things work here." I asked, "Doesn't anyone get in trouble for this?" She laughed softly. "Everyone here protects each other." That made me nervous. Throughout the night, more strange things happened. Guests made unusual requests. Some asked for special drinks that weren't on the menu. Some wanted their glasses filled without paying. And somehow, it always got approved by the manager. I realized this wasn't about rules, it was about power. Around 2 in the morning, the place was packed. Money was everywhere. Stacks of chips, cash on tables, tips overflowing from pockets. I felt like I was in a movie, but this was real life.
At one point, the head manager walked past me. He smiled. "Doing okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Good," he said. "You're fitting in well." Part of me felt proud. Another part felt scared. I couldn't believe this secret world existed right under the restaurant where families ate dinner. When the night finally ended, I was exhausted. But when I counted my tips, my hands started shaking again. I had made more money in one night than I usually made in an entire week. I understood then why people stayed, why they didn't ask questions, why they kept quiet. But I also felt something else, a heavy feeling in my chest, like I had crossed into a world I wasn't meant to see. After that first night, I kept working the night shifts. At first, everything felt unreal. I would serve pancakes and coffee to families during the day. Then, just hours later, I'd be underground serving expensive drinks in a secret casino. It was like living two different lives. The money was incredible. Every night I walked out with pockets full of cash. I paid off my debts quickly. I started saving more than I ever could before. But the longer I worked there, the harder it became. I saw things that made me uncomfortable. People losing huge amounts of money in minutes. Others celebrating like kings after winning. I saw anger. I saw desperation. I saw people who clearly drank too much. Sometimes guests would argue with waitresses. Security always stepped in, but it still made my heart race. There were nights when police officers sat laughing at tables, and then later I'd see security quietly escort someone out. And nothing happened. No reports, no trouble. Everything was handled quietly. That's when I realized how protected this place was. It wasn't just a secret, it was an operation. I talked to one coworker who had been there longer than me. "Why does the city allow this?" I asked. She sighed. "Because everyone important comes here. They don't want it shut down." That answer scared me. I started feeling watched all the time. Cameras were everywhere. Managers always knew where we were. If someone talked too much, they disappeared from the schedule. One girl suddenly stopped showing up. When I asked about her, no one gave a straight answer. "Don't worry about it," they said. That made my stomach twist. The fun feeling of big money slowly turned into stress. I began having trouble sleeping. I kept thinking about everything I'd seen, the double lives, the secrets, the power. I felt like if something went wrong, there would be no one to help me. Still, I kept coming back. The money was too tempting. Every time I thought about quitting, I remembered how hard life was before. But deep down, I knew this couldn't last forever. One night, a big argument broke out near the main table. A man accused another of cheating. Voices got loud. Chairs were pushed back. For a moment, I thought it would turn violent. Security rushed in. They grabbed both men and pulled them away. The music kept playing like nothing happened. Everyone went back to drinking and laughing, like it was normal. That's when something clicked inside me. This place wasn't normal, and no amount of money could change that. I realized I didn't want to be part of it anymore. I started thinking seriously about leaving, but I was afraid of what they might say, afraid of what they might do. Finally, after one especially stressful night, I made my decision. I was done. The next day, I asked to speak with the manager. My hands were shaking. I told him I wanted to go back to regular shifts, or quit. He looked at me quietly for a long moment. "Are you sure?" he asked. "You're making great money." "I know," I said, "but it's not for me." He studied my face, then nodded slowly. "All right, night shift isn't for everyone." I felt a wave of relief. I worked my last night shift that weekend. As I walked down those basement stairs one final time, I took a long look around. The flashing lights, the loud music, the powerful people laughing like nothing in the world could touch them. It felt like saying goodbye to a secret world. When the shift ended, I collected my tips and changed back into my normal clothes. As I walked up the stairs and out into the quiet street, the cool night air hit my face. For the first time in months, I felt free. I never told anyone the full story, not friends, not family. I knew some secrets were better left behind. I continued working regular shifts for a short time. Eventually, I found another job. It paid less, but I slept better at night. Looking back now, those nights in the basement are not my best memories. Yes, I earned a lot of money, more than I ever thought possible as a waitress, but I also saw a side of the world I wish I hadn't. I learned that behind beautiful buildings and good reputations, there can be hidden realities. Places where powerful people break rules, where money controls everything, where secrets are protected at all costs. That experience taught me something important. Sometimes opportunities that look too good to be true are exactly that, and sometimes the price you pay isn't money, it's peace of mind. It was my choice to stay as long as I did, and I don't regret learning that lesson, but I do know this. No amount of money is worth living in constant stress and fear. Behind that fancy restaurant was a world I never expected, and walking away was the best decision I ever made. Because in the end, a quiet life with honest work felt richer than all the cash I made underground. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what do you do for work? And have you ever experienced something strange or shocking on the job? Sometimes the most unexpected stories happen in the most ordinary places.